everybody, and welcome to GamerVision, episode 31. We are here to talk about some sad news,
Uh,
but
it depends on who you talk to.
yeah, I guess it all comes down to perspective. I guess it really is something where it's like, well, how many people are actually going to be depressed by this news?
Yeah,
But before we get to that, how are you doing, Tony?
I am doing fantastic,
Good.
fantastically well.
That's for the most part, I am as well. That's I'm the topic for today's episode is one that kind of caught me by surprise, but we'll get to that in in just a little bit. Today, as we were filming, two big delays came out. One of which I think we both fairly agree
Needed to
may not
happen.
even yeah. I think they both needed. Well, I think one needed to happen, and then one was kind of a surprise.
Yeah.
But kind of the speculation that you and I were talking about before filming is the surprise delay of Old Republic. That seems to be more of a we might not be working on this anymore.
It's more of a soft cancellation and not
Yeah,
necessarily a delay.
yeah,
Like, they're not saying outright, hey, we're not making this game anymore. But there's some
yeah.
turmoil going on is it Aspire that's working on the game?
Uh,
Uh,
I, I
yes,
think so. Yeah.
Aspire is working on the game. Yeah, they've
So
apparently in recent times have lost two studio heads, and there's some major troubles with the Old Republic game, and it's essentially just been put on hold.
and Sony is pretty well versed with this one thing. Um, you said it before filming. Just like Sony kicked off their big showcase for the PS5 to be like, hey, this is the system you're gonna want to have. The very first thing that was shown off was the Old Republic remake,
Yeah,
and as you pointed out, maybe they showed that a little too soon.
yeah, that was a
Um,
gorgeous cinematic trailer that they showed off to get people hyped about getting back into a an old uh, time in Star Wars, and there was no gameplay. I don't think we've seen much of any gameplay of the game that I can
yeah,
remember. Um,
it was primarily like, hey, we are doing this remake of a very beloved, like early Xbox RPG.
yeah.
And as I said, Sony is fairly well versed in this little snafu of showing a game off too soon.
Yeah.
Um, they're
Sony's not
getting
the only
better.
one, but yeah, that's just one of the things that we're more and more. I say this all the time: don't show the game until you know it is ready to come out,
Yeah,
because all you're going to do is you're going to get people hyped up. You're going to get them angry when the game gets delayed. They're going to vent that anger on social media at you, whether it's
yeah,
warranted or not. Most of the time, it's not warranted because people take it way too far.
yeah.
Yes, it's disappointing that this game is being delayed. Maybe is going to be canceled. I love Star Wars. I was very excited about getting into the Old Republic era again, and but you've got to understand these things happen. It's a miracle that any game comes out ever.
Yeah. It is not an easy thing to do. Like anytime that you're dealing with like trying to market a creative product, it's difficult. And not only a creative product, but also something that when people play it, they don't hate it.
Yeah,
And even harder to make something that people love. But from what they're showing right now with Old Republic, from the little bit of information that's out, that I guess they're now targeting a 2025 release, which um, that's that's a little bit of a delay. Like that was,
this is almost like the Metroid Prime 4 situation where they are just scrapping everything that they've done and they're starting completely over.
yeah, they're like, well, this is not shaping up the way we intended it, so we're gonna hit that big reset button and we're going to try again. Hopefully, fingers crossed that they've got the resources and the backing to do that, because
Hmm.
I mean, that's 3 years away from
Yeah.
potentially. coming out. Like you said, we haven't seen any actual gameplay of it, so who knows just how far along they were with what they're at. And then the other probably not too surprising delay that was announced today was Lord of the Rings Gollum getting pushed back again
I mean,
from September.
to me, this one's a little more surprising because this game was
Yeah,
almost there at the finish line. And
it's late July.
I think the reaction to the recent trailers has sort of taken the studio back a little bit, and the game's been delayed, not indefinitely, but we just don't have a release date for when we might be looking, whether it's 2 months away, 3 months away. Are they going to go and pull a Sonic and completely redo the Gollum model? Um,
In the last episode when we were talking about the games we were looking forward to that we didn't know much about, I pontificated. I don't know if
mhm.
that's the right word for this, but um, the possibility that they might be like, okay, well, obviously people aren't gravitating to this character model. Maybe we should spend some additional time to, you know, Gollum is an ugly character.
But
Sonic is
yes,
not necessarily an ugly character. They made Sonic a terrifying character, and then they brought him back to more of what people know and love. Gollum, I don't just from what I saw of the model that they had so far, I felt like they could do more with that model. Like it
that
just kind of
character
seemed,
model almost looks sort of half finished to me.
yeah, that
Like it's in the alpha slash beta stage, and they need a couple more layers of something on top of it.
yeah,
Like it's not, I mean, it's bad, but and we don't know for sure that that's the reason that the game is being delayed. There was no official, we're reworking this, we're reworking that. They're just like, we want to make the best game we can possibly make, and
yeah,
we just need some more time. And that's disappointing because again, Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, two of my favorite franchises of all time. I read all the books about those. I watch everything about both of those franchises, and I love getting to play in those worlds, and it's disappointing, but ultimately I know with games, it they just sometimes take longer than you expect. And that's one of those things that I just
yeah,
keep going back to. Don't show the game until you know it's ready.
yeah,
You don't have to have 3 years of hype for Lord of the Rings or Star Wars or a lot of properties. You just need a couple of months, really, to get people very excited about it. And at that
yeah.
point, the game's ready to come out. You can start really showing it and just, push that ball down the hill and get it going very quickly.
Yeah, and I feel like as far as companies go, Nintendo, since the launch of the Switch, Nintendo really has done a phenomenal job of like showing off a game and then a few months later, at most 6 months later, the game comes out. They really have not ran into issues where they've had to delay games. Like I think
Yeah.
Breath of the Wild 2 is like the only one that like they had a firm release date and then they were like we're going to spend a little bit more time polishing things up and getting this more ready for launch than what we thought we originally needed. But most of the Switch generation, like Nintendo has been hitting those release dates. They haven't they haven't really shown off anything too soon
I had
except
actually
for
done some research into this recently, and I'll have to see if I can find that spreadsheet that I had come up with. And I think the average time during the lifetime of the Switch from announcement to release has been 4 months
which
for
is crazy.
Nintendo games, which is crazy. But I think that is a perfect amount of time. Some games have taken more, some games have been
Yeah.
less. They've done really good with like the stealth launches of, hey, here's this game, and guess what? You can play it in about 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Like they've just done like the Switch is such a 180 from like how the Wii U era uh, was. And I mean, for the most part, like it's just outside of Metroid Prime 4, which who knows when that's going to come out, or even if it's going to be a Switch title. At this point, not really sure. but like I said, Nintendo has they've delivered
Mhm.
on so many things since the Switch launched back in 2017. Um, but with Gollum being delayed and Old Republic being delayed, it's really not like 2022 was needing those games to come out this year. Like
That's true.
as the kids would say, we've been eating good. So,
Yeah,
um,
and the rest of the year is stacked for pretty much everybody.
yeah.
Um,
Except, I mean, maybe not quite Microsoft, but they're going to have a stellar 2023 if
yeah,
everything holds up with their release schedules with that. Um, but yeah, like it's just 2022 is fine. We don't really need any more games. We still have some monsters coming out later this year with God of War Ragnarok and Pokemon Scarlet and Violet and Bayonetta 3 and Xenoblade Chronicles 3. I think
Xenoblade
should
Chronicles is will
like
probably be out by the time this episode is up.
yeah. So like
And
there's plenty of stuff.
have you seen the review embargo's lifted today? And it's I think it's averaging 90 on Metacritic.
Woo.
It's reviewing insanely well.
Like that franchise is a really good it is a solid franchise, and it is crazy to think that at one point in time
Yeah.
we may not have ever got it over here
Yep.
if not enough people petitioned the what was it
Operation
Operation
Rainfall,
yeah, like that and Pandora's Tower and the
the
last
last story.
story.
Yeah.
So like just the fact that Xenoblade has kind of become such
It's a tentpole franchise for Nintendo at this point.
yeah, and to think that it was like, no, we're just gonna leave this in Japan. Nah, nobody outside of Japan's gonna be interested in this. What? There's like a million people who signed a. Wait, what? How did who did? We need a whole new like research team because
Yeah.
how did
Now
we
we're
miss
like
this?
3.5 games deep into this franchise,
Yeah,
multi millions of sales every time a new game comes out, with multiple releases of some of the games. It's just been insane how well Xenoblade has done for
having
them.
having special editions that crash your storefront
Yeah,
because so many people are rushing to try to get that special edition. Um, but outside of that stuff and the wonders of 2022, one thing that was brought to my attention after I beat Elden Ring, I was kind of looking for a game to dive into, and then I remembered that I was wanting to take a break from Spider-Man before diving into Miles Morales. So then I've been playing Miles Morales, but I also got Stranger of Paradise just a few days ago, or well, I guess as of when this episode goes out, maybe like a week or so. I don't know time. Um, so I popped it in. I was ready to check it out. I was so excited. The story, the characters, the plot, like all that is just off the wall, zany, crazy. Doesn't really make sense. There's graphical glitches that really mess with some of the more intense moments of cutscenes because like the camera just doesn't really know where it wants
yeah.
to like focus in on. But the combat is great. Combat is phenomenal. Um, but then I was talking to a friend and he was like, "Well, you might as well just get used to playing the game on the hardest difficulty, which is chaos mode, because the expansions that are coming out for the game, you can only play them on the hardest difficulty.
That
So
that
even though the game itself, like, even though the game itself has four difficulty tiers, uh, the expansions that you have to pay extra money to get, um, you can only play them on the hardest difficulty, which is
that is
chaos mode.
baffling to me. Like, why would you cut out a rather sizable portion of your audience
Yeah,
that might want to play more Elden Ring, uh, but don't play it on the hardest difficulty because that they don't like that. A lot of people don't play on hard or extreme or whatever it is. I never do. Um,
and like I hopped in, I was just checking it out, everything was fine, and then I heard that news, and I was like, I just got done playing 180 hours of Elden Ring, and I wanted to jump into another game that wasn't going to be so like it is a much shorter game. It's a much more single player corridor. Like this is just go from point A to point B. But to have to go through those missions on the hardest difficulty to kind of get used to that difficulty to then get used, like I really just wanted something that would be kind of like an Elden Ring light, I
Yeah.
guess. Because the combat is good, but Stranger Paradise, um, like I'm glad I can skip the cutscenes and stuff because I've already come across a couple where I'm like, this is cringy, and I just skip to the next thing to just get to the gameplay. Um, but I don't really understand what the thought process is
Yeah, I
on
don't
like
know.
gatekeeping that like
There's going to be a portion of the audience that's like, yeah, if you want to get the most out of it, play it on the hardest difficulty because that's, you know, the ultimate test of how good the game is. And that's generally not how the average person
yeah
plays. Um, Number one, they don't play through a game multiple times, at least,
yeah
you know, in rapid succession. And a lot of people start off on normal because that's where the game is the most balanced. Uh,
yeah well and I just looking at it, you know, I'm going to play through the game, but now I'm kind of questioning on whether I really want to get the expansions for Stranger Paradise because like Elden Ring was already like I'm not a fan of Soulsborne games. Like
mhm.
I want to like them, I really do. And with Elden Ring, the way that it progressed was very well done to the point that I was like, oh, okay, I'm kind of figuring this out. This is cool. I'm defeating bosses and stuff, and I'm just kind of paving my own path. But with Stranger Paradise or the older Soulsborne games, you don't really have that freedom to just run around and max level your character and
Mhm.
just kind of go down the paths that you want. Like a lot of it is, no, you have to beat this boss and you have to beat this boss now with exactly what you have, and you cannot go past it. You cannot grind. You cannot like craft enough stuff to make it easier to get past this boss. With Elden Ring, it was just like, well, we're not going to explain anything to you, but you can go and do anything.
Yeah.
So, um, so just kind of weird that,
Difficulty in games is a weird thing in general. Like, it's a hard
yeah,
thing to get right. And a lot of games will let you play with that in weird ways, whether it's changing the difficulty on the fly. Some games will punish you for it by, you know,
yeah,
locking you out of achievements or something. Other games are like, you know what? This is yours at this point. You can play this game however you want to play it.
yeah,
And games like Axiom Verge 2, if you're playing through the game and you find the bosses are just too hard to beat, they just let you skip them and continue on in the story. Um,
which is perfectly fine.
which is fine. And then they give you bonuses for beating the bosses. So there's an incentive to want to fight them and
Yeah,
learn how to beat them. But if you find yourself banging your head against the wall and it's becoming a frustrating experience for you and you don't want to do that anymore, they give you the option to
yeah.
move past that and don't punish you for it. Nintendo's
Well,
really good about difficulty as well, especially in the Mario platformers recently, where they, you know, it's one difficulty. You don't have difficulty settings in a Mario game, but you know, if you die so many times, they're like, hey, you know what? Here's this little thing over here. I'll give you, you know, invincibility, or you can have some extended flight, or whatever it is, and help
yeah,
you get past where you're at. And they sort of punish you by not letting you get the most possible reward out of the level for, you know, your star on the map screen or whatever, and then you go back after you have figured out that section of the level, you play it again and you get your rewards and you move on. And then
yeah,
at the end of the game, after you've beaten Bowser and you see the credits and you've completed the game, they give you the here's the real, you know, this is going to test every platforming thing you've ever done in this game, and it is going to be hard, it is going to be frustrating, but you are going to love these levels because they're so because of the challenge.
well, and that's with like Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart that came out last year. Insomniac is getting, you know, really good at just all the different like accessibility. Um, like features and stuff for their games. Like the Spider-Man games allow you to change all kinds of stuff up. But in Rift Apart, uh, it's primarily an action platformer type of game with all kinds of like shooting mechanics. Um, but there is some sections of the game where you play as Clank and you're having to solve all of these like physical puzzles and stuff to
Yeah.
um, gain new powers or gain access to new things. And essentially, like if you're not really a fan of puzzles, you can just skip those missions entirely, which is
Yeah.
you know similar to the just being able to skip a boss. And it's nice. Like I mean, for me, like I took it as a challenge of like, okay, I want to figure out this puzzle, but on if I was to play the game again, I really wouldn't want to like slow the game down to a crawl to do these missions over again because I think there's like 8 to 10 of them just kind of spaced out throughout the game. So like you have all this high action, high energy, all this crazy stuff is going on, and then all of a sudden it's bam, you're now doing this random room puzzle that you're
Yeah.
having to push blocks or connect different things together, and I'm just like I I like the ability to be able to skip it. I did it the first time as I went through did the puzzles the first time, but on a like if I was to play it again, just being able to skip all that
Yeah.
is nice. But yeah, like with Miles Morales, so much fun just zipping around, just enjoying the story. Like I'm on I think there's 3 difficulty settings, and I'm just on the normal one,
Yeah.
which is enough challenge for me. Like perfectly fine, and a good change of pace from the Soulsborne games. Um, but yeah, I just when someone pointed that out to me, I was like, that just seems very weird. And
Yeah. It is very bizarre to want to essentially lock your fan base, a good portion of your fan base out of content that you want them to see
yeah,
by making it difficult for them to see it.
like you want people to buy this, right? Like you want people to play this and like you want money for this. But I mean, I guess it's not necessarily the strangest thing that Square Enix has announced or talked about this year, so I guess I mean, maybe maybe that's why they started to roll out their NFT stuff alongside the expansion of A Stranger Paradise because they started they were like, well, maybe if we have something that's even worse, they won't really notice this thing.
Yeah,
They'll
we're
buy.
noticing both of them.
Yeah,
Trust us.
yeah. Um, man, I
And
still I,
thank you, Mojang, for coming out this week and saying NFTs will never be in Minecraft.
which that could I mean if it was in Minecraft that would be very dangerous. I mean, Minecraft reaches so many different audiences
Mm,
um, that that could have been quite a bad PR thing of just uh, I could just see it now of just kids racking up all kinds of credit card
oh
debt
gosh.
on on their parents' credit cards. Just look at what I bought. Just all these I've got all these NFTs now. How's everything going over on the procedurally generated side? The
Oh,
any new streams you guys got coming out?
really good. Our Wednesday streams are a little chaotic right now. They're a little bit of everything. Sometimes it's Destiny. Sometimes it's Jackbox. Sometimes it's I don't know. Maybe we'll do House Flipper one day. Who knows? There's no real
I,
set schedule for any of that stuff right now. We did just on the podcast do an interview with Noah Copeland, who is releasing a fan remake of Sonic Triple Trouble on August 2nd, which is going to be free for anybody that wants it. And you can check out that in episode 177 of the Procedurally Generated show, and there's links to where you can find the game, and there's a demo right now that's out, 4 levels uh, of the game, and you can try that out and see what you think of it, and then the game will be free on August 2nd.
yeah, let us know in the comments of all the stuff that you want to see us talk about, games you want to see us stream. There's all sorts of stuff that we are trying to keep up with, and just all kinds of content rolling out across procedurally generated and just one more level. Um, yeah, we will we will see you with the next episode of GamerVision here on YouTube. See ya, everybody.
Bye bye.